Welcome back to The Life with the Browns. Kody Brown walked into that podcast studio thinking he could do what he has always done: smile, deflect, spin a few half-truths, and walk away untouched. For years, that strategy worked. Interviews were friendly. Hosts tiptoed around the hard questions. Accountability was optional. But this time was different. And Kody Brown was not ready for it. When the self-proclaimed patriarch of Sister Wives sat down with Nick Viall and Natalie Joy on the Viall Files, he clearly expected a comfortable conversation. Maybe a few questions about plural marriage. Maybe some surface-level reality TV drama. What he got instead was a slow, relentless dismantling of the story he's been telling the public for years. Almost immediately, Kody's confidence began to crack. His posture stiffened. His eyes darted. His voice shifted. Because Nick and Natalie zeroed in on the one subject Kody desperately tries to avoid: his children. Not the one still orbiting his preferred household. Not the narrative he likes to sell about being a loving, misunderstood father. The real question: why doesn't he actually show up? Not through filtered phone calls. Not through vague text messages. Not through "I love you, call me when you're ready" voicemails. But in real life. Face to face. Like a father who truly wants to repair broken relationships. The tension in that studio was suffocating. Nick and Natalie didn't let him off the hook. They pointed out the glaring contradiction in Kody's own words. He claims he's constantly reaching out, yet admits he hasn't physically seen many of his children in months, even years. That's not a communication gap. That's absence. Kody tried to retreat into his usual talking points. Relationships are a two-way street. Adult children have responsibilities too. He's done his part. But for the first time, those excuses didn't land. The room didn't nod along. No one laughed when he tried to soften the moment with humor. Even the other cast members present sat in awkward silence as Kody's bravado collapsed in real time. What made this interview so explosive wasn't just Kody's visible discomfort. It was the fact that the people confronting him had no emotional ties to him. They weren't ex-wives. They weren't estranged kids. They weren't bound by years of manipulation or fear of fallout. They were outsiders, saying out loud what viewers have been screaming at their TVs for years. The blame shifting, the excuses, the refusal to take real accountability as a father. Kody kept insisting he's doing everything right, that he tells his kids he loves them, that he reaches out all the time. But the more he talked, the more his own narrative unraveled. When Nick asked the simplest question, "Why don't you get on a plane?" Kody had nothing. No concrete reason. No plan.
No urgency.
If you're desperate to reconnect with your daughter Michael T. in North Carolina, why not book a flight? If you're truly heartbroken over the distance with your kids, why not show up on their doorstep and prove it? Instead, Kody spiraled into a long, winding explanation filled with emotional loopholes. He calls. He waits. He tells them he loves them. And then he waits some more. As if healing years of neglect can happen from 1,500 miles away. As if a voicemail can undo favoritism, abandonment, and broken trust. Nick and Natalie pushed back hard. They made it clear, when relationships are shattered, effort looks different. Text messages aren't enough. Phone calls aren't enough. And silence disguised as giving them space isn't parenting. Then Kody made the argument that sent viewers over the edge. He claimed that because his children are adults, they share equal responsibility for maintaining the relationship. Equal. As if the power imbalance of parent and child magically disappears at 18. As if emotional wounds don't follow you into adulthood. As if being a father comes with an expiration date. The mental gymnastics were unreal. Kody actually positioned himself as the victim, portraying his children as ungrateful, distant, unwilling to meet him halfway. Watching him frame abandonment as rejection was infuriating. He wasn't being held accountable in his mind. He was being attacked. But here's the twist that truly detonated this interview across the internet. One of his own children was watching. Leon Brown saw that podcast. And Leon had receipts. Receipts that would completely dismantle Kody's carefully rehearsed version of events. Because while Kody sat there painting himself as a devoted father who just can't catch a break, the reality behind the scenes was far uglier. And Leon wasn't about to stay silent anymore. The lies told in that studio, they were about to be exposed one by one, in the most public, undeniable way possible. For once, Kody Brown couldn't control the narrative. And the fallout was only just beginning. Kody Brown didn't just dodge questions on that podcast. He rewrote history in real time. What he never acknowledged, what he carefully stepped around, is the reality his children actually lived through. These kids didn't imagine the favoritism. They watched it. For years. They watched their father prioritize Robyn and her household while the rest of them were treated like optional extras in a family he once claimed was equal. He ignored the fact that during COVID, his so-called safety protocols conveniently kept him away from Gabriel and Garrison, while he remained comfortably planted at Robyn's house. He framed it as responsibility. His kids experienced it as abandonment. He brushed past the reality that daughters like Madison haven't spoken to him in years, that they've gotten married, had babies, built entire lives without him, because experience taught them a painful truth. When it matters most, Kody doesn't show up. Nick and Natalie didn't let him off easy. They kept pressing. Kody kept dodging. And the internet watched in disbelief as a grown man argued, with full sincerity, that a few phone calls should count as meaningful parenting. That bare minimum contact somehow equals effort. That distance, silence, and years of emotional neglect can be erased with a voicemail. But the reckoning was already loading. And it had one name written all over it. Leon Brown. Leon had heard enough, and this time, they weren't staying quiet. While Kody sat comfortably on a podcast spinning his familiar narrative about being a devoted father who reaches out constantly, Leon went straight to Instagram and dropped a statement that obliterated every word their father had said.
No sugarcoating. No pelaitnis.
No protecting his image. Just raw truth. Leon publicly stated that they had not heard from Kody since their brother Garrison took his own life in early 2024.
Pause on that.
Really sit with it. Kody Brown's son died by suicide, and according to Leon, their father hasn't reached out even once since that tragedy. Not a call, not a message, not a single attempt to check on his grieving child. And then it got worse. Leon revealed that Kody blew them off at Garrison's funeral. The funeral. The one place where even the most absent parent is expected to show up, to stand beside their children, to offer comfort instead of excuses. Kody couldn't even manage that. Leon's words hit like a bomb across social media. There's a ridiculous video of my father circulating where he says he reaches out to his children, Leon wrote. Let me be so clear. I have not heard from that man since my brother killed himself. That wasn't frustration. That was fury. That was the voice of someone who watched their father lie to the public, play the victim, and pretend to care, while doing absolutely nothing when it mattered most. Leon had receipts. Leon had truth. And they were done letting Kody control the narrative. What makes Leon's statement even more powerful is how rare it is. Leon has largely stepped away from the sister-wives' chaos. They've chosen privacy, distance, a life outside the cameras and the drama. For them to break that silence so forcefully means something crossed a line that could no longer be ignored. And here's the part that makes this whole situation especially heartbreaking. Leon is Mary's only child. Mary, the woman who spent decades begging Kody for affection. The woman who stayed loyal to a loveless marriage, hoping things would change. The woman who watched her husband prioritize other wives while she slowly faded into the background. And now her child has publicly disowned him. The contrast couldn't be more brutal. On one side, you have Kody Brown on a podcast claiming he loves his kids and reaches out all the time. On the other, you have his actual child saying they haven't heard from him since their brother's death and that he disrespected them at that brother's funeral. One of these stories is true, and it isn't Kody's. Kody Brown seems to genuinely believe a phone call makes him Father of the Year. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. Throughout the Vile Files interview, he clung to the same tired defense like a life raft. I reach out. I call them. I tell them I love them. He repeated it so often it became clear. He truly thinks that's enough. Like checking a box on a to-do list magically repairs years of emotional damage. And yes, his kids have confirmed that he does call. Kody Brown has openly said that. But that's the problem. A phone call is the bare minimum. It's the absolute least a parent can do while still being able to claim they tried. A call from Flagstaff to North Carolina doesn't replace showing up at your daughter's door. It doesn't replace sitting face to face and owning your failures. It doesn't replace being present for grandchildren, milestones, and moments that actually matter. Kody Brown wants credit for effort he never fully makes. And now, thanks to Leon, the world sees the gap between his words and his actions clearer than ever. Kody Brown talks about geography like it's some insurmountable force of nature. As if the distance between Arizona and North Carolina is an impossible chasm no father could ever cross. As if planes don't exist. As if cars don't exist. As if thousands of parents don't travel farther than that every single week just to show up for the people they love. The truth is painfully simple. If Kody genuinely wanted to see his children, nothing would stop him. He has the money. He has the flexibility. What he lacks is the willingness to face the uncomfortable reality that repairing these relationships requires sacrifice, humility, and real accountability. Instead, he defaults to the safest option available. He picks up the phone, leaves a message saying he loves them, and then retreats. He waits. He waits for the anger to cool. He waits for time to magically heal wounds he helped create. He waits for his ex-wives to stop being bitter so his kids will suddenly soften toward him. It's passive. It's cowardly. And it's the easiest possible version of fatherhood. What makes it worse is that Kody genuinely seems confused about why this isn't working. He acts baffled that his adult children aren't rushing back to reconnect with a man who offers nothing but occasional phone calls and zero accountability. He cannot grasp the reality that his kids need more than words. They need action. They need proof. They need to see through behavior, not voicemails, that they actually matter. The phone call is Kody's security blanket. It lets him feel like he's trying without ever putting himself in a vulnerable position. He doesn't have to sit across from T and hear how years of favoritism cuts so deeply. He doesn't have to look Gabriel in the eye and apologize for choosing Robyn over him during COVID. He doesn't have to confront the pain he caused because the phone creates distance, and distance protects him. But his kids aren't buying it. Leon isn't buying it. And millions of viewers watching this slow-motion collapse aren't buying it either. A phone call isn't enough. It never was. For a brief, almost shocking moment, it looked like Kody Brown might finally understand that. During his appearance on Special Forces, World's Toughest Test, Kody was put under intense, no-nonsense interrogation. The directing staff didn't coddle him.
They didn't let him spin.
They forced him to confront the wreckage of his relationships head-on. And, in what felt like a genuine breakthrough, Kody admitted the truth. He acknowledged that he was the discrepancy in his family. He took accountability. He recognized that the common denominator in his broken marriages and fractured relationships with his children was him. Fans watching that moment felt something they hadn't felt about Kody in years. Hope. Maybe the bravado had finally cracked. Maybe the military-style confrontation broke through the narcissism. Maybe Kody Brown was actually going to change. That hope lasted about 5 minutes. That Special Forces moment should have been a turning point. It should have marked the moment Kody Brown finally broke his pattern, finally chose growth over ego, accountability over excuses. Instead, it became just another chapter in the same tired cycle. Brief, performative self-awareness followed immediately by a slide right back into the selfish, self-protective behavior that destroyed his family in the first place. Some people change when they're confronted with the truth. Kody Brown performs remorse until the cameras turn off. And when you strip away the speeches, the interviews, the carefully crafted soundbites, what you're left with is the real cost of Kody Brown's parenting. Not hypotheticals. Not opinions. Real children. Real estrangements. Real damage. A very real body count of emotional neglect that he continues to minimize while insisting he's done everything right. Let's start with Madison Brush, Janelle's daughter. Madison now has 4 children.
4.
And according to multiple reports, She didn't even tell Kody about her fourth pregnancy. Sit with that for a moment. Your relationship with your father is so broken, so irrelevant to your life, that informing him you're bringing another child into the world doesn't even cross your mind. Madison hasn't spoken to Kody in years, and somehow, in Kody's version of reality, that's perfectly acceptable. Then there are Gabriel and Garrison, Janelle's sons, who endured the full force of Kody's COVID-era control spiral. Remember those protocols? The endless rules, the demands, the loyalty tests, rules that only applied to certain households, rules that never seemed to inconvenience Robyn's home. Gabriel tried. He genuinely tried. He bent over backwards to meet Kody's expectations, desperate to maintain some kind of relationship with his father. And what did he get in return? Breadcrumbs. Inconsistency. Emotional distance. Garrison, meanwhile, pulled away completely. The rift between father and son never healed. There was no reconciliation.
No closure.
Garrison took his own life in early 2024 with that relationship still shattered. That tragedy alone should have shattered Kody into action. Losing a child to suicide should force any parent to immediately hold their remaining children closer.
To check in.
To show up. To make damn sure no one else feels abandoned. But according to Leon, Kody did none of that.
He didn't reach out to Leon.
He didn't reach out to Gabriel. He simply disappeared. Leon themselves represent another devastating failure. Mary's only child. A child who grew up watching their mother beg for love and scraps of attention from a man who consistently chose other wives, other priorities. Leon is living their life as a transgender person, navigating identity, safety, and selfhood in a world that isn't always kind, and their father is nowhere to be found. And as if that weren't cruel enough, Leon had to watch Kody blow them off at their own brother's funeral. At a moment of unimaginable grief, Kody couldn't even manage basic respect. The level of disregard is staggering. Christine's children haven't escaped this pattern either. Michael T has admitted that yes, Kody calls her. But that's where the relationship ends.
No visits.
No consistent effort. No showing up in real, tangible ways. Just the same hollow phone calls Kody uses as proof that he's trying. And then there's Isabel. Christine's daughter underwent major scoliosis surgery. Serious, painful, life-altering surgery. And Kody didn't show up. He hid behind COVID restrictions while somehow managing to bend or ignore those same rules whenever Robyn or her children needed him. He missed a moment his daughter will remember for the rest of her life. A moment that screamed, louder than any words ever could, where she stood in his list of priorities. And that's the through line in all of this. Because while Kody's relationships with his older children crumble, while estrangements pile up and trust erodes beyond repair, his 5 children with Robyn get everything.
His time.
His attention. His physical presence. His energy. His protection. This isn't confusion. It isn't bad luck. It isn't geography. It's choice. And no matter how many times Kody Brown insists he's a devoted father, the lived experiences of his children tell a very different story. The pattern is painfully clear. Kody's kids who live near him in Flagstaff get daily access, regular interaction, and the illusion of stability. The kids scattered across the country? They get the leftovers, occasional phone calls, vague promises, and endless excuses. The favoritism is so blatant it might as well be written in permanent ink. Kody has adopted a proximity-based parenting model. If you're close, convenient, and low effort, you matter. If you require travel, discomfort, or sacrifice, you're on your own. And here's the part that doesn't get talked about enough. Some of these estranged children aren't even adults. There are minor children living out of state with their mothers that Kody has effectively abandoned, yet he applies the same twisted logic he uses with his grown kids. They need to reach out to me. That's not parenting. That's neglect dressed up as communication, with a phone bill attached. Of course, Robyn Brown has stepped in to defend him. And of course, her defense is entirely self-serving. While Kody's estranged children are publicly calling out his failures, Robyn has positioned herself as his emotional shield, insisting the real issue isn't Kody's absence. It's those bitter ex-wives poisoning the children against their poor, misunderstood father. It's a narrative that's as convenient as it is false. Robyn has even gone so far as to compare Kody's rejection by his children to her own traumatic childhood. Through tears, she's claimed that when she sees Kody being rejected, she sees herself. The performance was dramatic. The logic behind it was non-existent. Because here's what Robyn never acknowledges. She directly benefits from Kody's estrangement from his other children. Every moment Kody doesn't invest in repairing relationships with Madison, Leon, Gabriel, Michael T, and the others is a moment he spends with Robyn and her 5 kids. Every plane ticket he doesn't buy to North Carolina is money that stays in the Flagstaff household. Every ounce of emotional energy he doesn't pour into accountability is energy funneled into the only family he seems interested in maintaining. Robyn has been the favored wife for years, and she has done absolutely nothing to disrupt that dynamic. In fact, she's reinforced it at every turn. During COVID, her house became Kody's home base while he enforced rigid, borderline absurd protocols that conveniently kept him away from his other children. She watched him choose her household again and again, and she stayed silent. She's witnessed the favoritism. She's witnessed the neglect. She's witnessed the broken promises. And instead of challenging Kody to do better, she's defended him. Her claim that the ex-wives are influencing the children might sound plausible, if not for one glaring issue. These children are adults with fully functioning brains who lived this reality firsthand. They don't need Christine, Janelle, or Mary whispering in their ears to understand what happened. They watched their father show up for Robyn's kids while disappearing from their lives. They felt the rejection themselves. Leon didn't need Mary to poison them against Kody. They experienced the abandonment directly. They didn't need anyone to explain it to them. They watched it happen with their own eyes. They watched their father blow them off at Garrison's funeral. Madison didn't need Janelle whispering in her ear to understand why Kody didn't deserve to know about her pregnancies. Years of absence taught her that lesson perfectly well. Gabriel and Garrison didn't need coaching to recognize that Kody's COVID rules weren't about safety. They lived the favoritism. They felt the inequality in real time. And yet, Robyn sits there, tears streaming down her face, portraying Kody as the tragic victim of parental alienation. She's admitted, carefully, selectively, that she disagrees with some of Kody's behaviors. But where is the pushback? Where is the moment she tells him to get on a plane and fix this? Where is her insistence that he prioritize the children who are hurting instead of hiding out with the ones who make him feel comfortable? It doesn't exist. Because Robyn's defense of Kody has never been about making him a better father. It's about preserving her position as the wife who matters most. Sometimes it takes a complete outsider to say what everyone else has been thinking for years. Natalie Joy wasn't buying a single excuse. As Kody sat there on the vile files, spinning his familiar web of deflection and blame, she cut straight through it with one simple, devastating truth. It is not your children's job to keep the relationship.
It is your job.
The silence that followed was deafening. You could see it on Kody's face. The moment when someone who's spent years dodging accountability suddenly collides with basic parenting reality. He stammered. He scrambled. He immediately fired back, insisting, "No, but I am reaching out. That's my point." But that wasn't the point. And Natalie knew it. She articulated the most fundamental rule of parenting, one any decent parent understands instinctively. You are the adult. You are the parent. Your children do not owe you a relationship. You owe them your effort, your presence, your willingness to do whatever it takes to repair what's broken. That responsibility doesn't end at 18. It doesn't end when they move out of state. It doesn't end when they're angry. And it doesn't end when accountability feels uncomfortable. It never ends. Kody couldn't accept that because his entire worldview is built on the idea that relationships are 50-50, even when one side is the parent and the other is the child. Because his kids are legally adults, he convinces himself they share equal responsibility for fixing relationships he damaged. That belief allows him to sleep at night while his children suffer, reassured that a few phone calls mean he's done his part. Natalie wasn't buying it. Neither was Nick. The frustration was written all over their faces as they watched Kody perform Olympic-level mental gymnastics in real time. Here was a man with 18 children, multiple estrangements, a son who died before reconciliation ever happened, and he still couldn't grasp the most basic truth of parenting. Parents pursue their children, not the other way around. What made Natalie's intervention so powerful was its simplicity. She didn't need to know the decades-long sister-wives history. She didn't need to watch seasons of favoritism play out on television. She only needed to hear Kody describe his parenting philosophy to recognize it for what it was: abdication of responsibility disguised as mutual effort. When she told him to keep reaching out, to keep showing his kids he cares even if they don't respond, she was offering advice every estranged parent desperately needs to hear. Don't stop. Don't wait. Don't make it conditional. Keep showing up because that's what parents do. Kody's response? More excuses. More claims about how he calls, how he says, "I love you," how sometimes they're kind and sometimes they're not. He learned nothing. Absolutely nothing. But at least Natalie tried. At least someone in that room had the backbone to tell Kody Brown exactly what he needed to hear, even if he refused to listen. And here's where Kody's logic doesn't just collapse, it becomes deeply disturbing. Because while he talks endlessly about adult children needing to meet him halfway, he conveniently ignores a critical reality. Not all of his estranged children are adults. Some of them are minors. Actual kids. Children still legally and emotionally dependent on their parents for stability, guidance, and reassurance. And Kody applies the same passive "wait for them to come to me" strategy to these minor children. Let that sink in. Teenagers, kids still in high school, living out of state with their mothers, are being treated like peer-level adults who are somehow equally responsible for maintaining a relationship with their father. Children navigating divorce, displacement, and emotional upheaval are expected to manage adult-level accountability. That's not parenting. That's abandonment, with extra steps. Kody has framed this entire narrative around the idea that most of his kids were already grown when the divorces happened, so they didn't need him the same way. Even if that were fully true, and it isn't, it still doesn't explain the younger children who watched their entire family structure collapse while their father chose Robyn's household over them. These kids needed him during the most traumatic period of their lives. Their mothers were divorcing. Their siblings were scattering. Their sense of home was disappearing. And instead of becoming the stable force they desperately needed, Kody checked out on everyone who wasn't living under Robyn's roof. The commentary channels have pointed this out again and again. Kody has 5 children with Robyn who receive daily attention because they're nearby and easy. Meanwhile, minor children in other states are treated like optional relationships, something he'll invest in only if it doesn't inconvenience him. The cruelty of that approach cannot be overstated. A minor child should never have to prove they're worthy of their father's attention. A minor child should never be responsible for managing adult emotions around abandonment and divorce. That's not how healthy parenting works. That's not how any of this works. But Kody has convinced himself that distance and age absolve him of responsibility. If a relationship requires effort, discomfort, or emotional reckoning, he opts out. And those kids are growing up watching their father choose comfort over connection. One day, when they're truly adults, they'll remember exactly who showed up and who didn't. Kody won't be able to blame their mothers for that. Kody Brown wanted to be remembered as the patriarch of a successful plural family. A man who defied convention and built something extraordinary. Instead, his legacy is painfully clear. A father who had 18 children and lost most of them through selfishness, favoritism, and a catastrophic inability to accept accountability. The receipts are everywhere. Leon publicly called him a liar and a joke of a father. Madison hasn't spoken to him in years and didn't even tell him about her 4th pregnancy. Gabriel and Garrison endured his COVID control spiral, and Garrison never got reconciliation before his death. Michael T gets phone calls and nothing more. Isabel needed her father during major surgery, and he chose Robyn instead. This isn't parental alienation. This isn't bitter ex-wives. This is a documented pattern of neglect confirmed by the very children Kody claims to love. Now Season 20 teases therapy and reconciliation. Kody says he wants healing, but his children are skeptical, and honestly, who could blame them? How many times have they watched him perform remorse only to reverse course the moment the pressure lifts? Even Mary tells him to stop apologizing because it's starting to sound hollow. When your apologies have become so repetitive and meaningless that people ask you to stop saying sorry, you've reached a new level of accountability failure. And here's the final question no one is asking Kody directly. What happens when Robyn's kids grow up and realize what their father did to their siblings? What happens when they understand their comfort came at the cost of someone else's abandonment? Will they still admire him? Or will they see him exactly the way Leon does? The tragedy of Kody Brown isn't that his family fell apart. It's that he had countless chances to fix it and chose his ego every single time. After every divorce, after Special Forces, after Garrison's death, after Leon spoke out, every time, he chose self-protection over accountability. And now, he's losing his children one by one, exactly the way he earned. Drop your thoughts below, like, subscribe, and stay tuned, because the next video is already waiting, and you won't want to miss what's coming next.